In our headlines on this Wednesday afternoon, September 11th here in South Korea. The latest data shows the job market in South Korea continues to grow, but at a slow pace, mainly due to a weakening construction industry. U.S. presidential candidates Kamala Harris and Donald Trump faced off for the first and possibly the only time before Election Day. Key issues discussed in the televised debate included foreign policy, the economy, and immigration. Israel released a video of a tunnel in Gaza, where it says 6 Israeli hostages were held and killed by Hamas. The footage shows a tiny tunnel, revealing the brutal conditions that the hostages had to endure. Thanks for joining us on Arirang News. I'm Peunji. We begin with South Korea's job market, which continues to grow but at a relatively slow pace. This was mainly due to a cooling trend in key sectors such as construction and as large number of people choosing not to work without a specific reason. Our Moon Hae-ryun has the details.
Job growth in South Korea continued in August, but at a slower pace compared to earlier in 2024, primarily due to a slowdown in the construction sector. Data from Statistics Korea on Wednesday shows that there were just under 28.9 million people in employment last month, up 123,000 from the same month last year. This represents the second consecutive month of year-on-year job growth exceeding 100,000, following a more subdued pace in May and June. While the overall job market remains resilient, the pace of job creation has slowed considerably compared to earlier in the year when job growth exceeded 300,000. A breakdown of the data reveals a mixed bag of results across different industries. While the information and communications sector added jobs, the construction sector experienced a significant decline with 84,000 fewer jobs.
The number of jobs in construction has fallen for 4 months straight. This is largely due to weakening construction industry, especially in general construction.
Another key factor that played into the decline in construction jobs is thought to be the heat wave in August, with the country experiencing one of the hottest summers on record. The wholesale and retail sector also shed 55,000 positions, with a growing use of unmanned kiosks and online shopping. The employment rate for individuals aged 15 to 64, a key indicator used by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, rose 0.2 percentage points to 69.8%. Meanwhile, the number of economically inactive individuals rose by 48,000 compared to the previous year. Of particular note is the surge in the number of people not working without a specific reason. This figure reached nearly 2.6 million, which is a record high for the month of August. Individuals aged 60 and over accounted for the largest increase in this category, followed closely by those in their 20s. During a job task force meeting on Wednesday, the first vice finance minister announced that the government plans to accelerate the implementation of measures to boost construction investment, as well as to actively seek out unemployed graduates and provide tailored employment services. Moon Hae-ryun, Arirang News.
South Korean authorities have rolled up their sleeves to make sure prices of rice and beef are under control ahead of the Chuseok holiday. The plan includes controlling the supply and modernizing domestic beef production. Our Lee-soo explains more.
As we face one of the biggest holidays here in South Korea, perhaps a major concern for many is the price of groceries. To ensure that the nation's farmers and consumers can all enjoy the Thanksgiving celebrations free from money worries, the government, the ruling party, and the agriculture and livestock industries are set on stabilizing these prices, especially for two South Korean staples, rice and beef.
We are set on stabilizing rice prices by setting aside the surplus from this year's harvest. First, we will set aside 20,000 hectares of rice cultivation areas immediately to prevent overproduction.
Representative Kim explained this is to prevent more of an oversurplus from entering the market. In addition, the government and farmers will work together to enhance rice quality to increase consumer demand, which has decreased year by year recently. Meanwhile, more long-term goals are being set for the domestic beef production industry.
We will strengthen the domestic beef industry by improving the current high-cost, long-term production process so there is no more recurring anxiety about its supply and demand.
The plan is to help farm owners build so-called smart cattle stations, equipped with technologies to help with production efficiency. Furthermore, the government will provide extended financial support and look for more fair distribution channels. Meanwhile, the government is working to increase the supply of other grocery items, including cabbages, apples, and pears, typically enjoyed in Korea's autumn months. Lee Si-hu, Arirang News.
Also ahead of the Chuseok holiday, a special emergency care period will be in effect for the next 2 weeks to prevent possible disruption in medical services. More local clinics will be open and doctors will see their pay increase temporarily. Our presidential correspondent Kim Do-yeon reports.
Amid concerns over the long holiday straining the nation's already hit emergency medical system, President Yoon on Tuesday said the next 2 weeks will be the Chuseok holiday emergency medical period. This came during a cabinet meeting to ease the public's concern over access to healthcare during the 5-day holiday.
추석 연휴 기간 국민 여러분께서는 정부의 안내에 따라 주시면 걱정 없이 의료 서비스를 받으실 수 있습니다.
First, he said there have been more local hospitals volunteering to open during this year's holidays than in past years. According to the Health Ministry, the number of hospitals expected to open during this period is twice as many than the last Seollal or Korean Lunar New Year, which was around 3,600. This is expected to ease the burden of emergency rooms across the nation, as President Yoon urged those with mild symptoms to find these hospitals or clinics to get checked up. For those looking for an open hospital, they can dial 129 or visit the portal called eGen or use the Naver or Kakao Map functions. He showed appreciation to these hospitals and those in the emergency rooms who will continue to work.
정부는 의료인들의 헌신에 조금이라도 보답하기 위해 추석 연휴 전후 한시적으로 진찰료, 조제료 등 건강보험 수가를 대폭 인상하기로 했습니다.
In fact, the government will increase the consultation fees for specialists at regional emergency medical centers who are particularly responsible for critically ill emergency patients to 3.5 times the usual rate. In addition, to reinforce the insufficient workforce, the government will prioritize the deployment of available personnel such as military doctors, public health doctors, and medical support nurses. According to the top office, the finance minister reiterated during the meeting that 3.7 billion Korean won or around $2.7 million will be put in to make sure more medical staff could be deployed. As he wrapped up, the president didn't forget to thank those who would not be traveling to their hometowns due to their duties, such as soldiers, firefighters, police officers, and emergency medical workers. He called them the true heroes that uphold the society. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, President Yoon emphasized the need for freedom, human rights, and the rule of law in cyberspace for all global citizens, as he pledged South Korea would work with the international community to uphold such values. This came at the Cyber Summit Korea 2024, which opened in Seoul on Tuesday morning, focusing on AI, quantum technology, space, and global cybersecurity. In his congratulatory address, Yoon said South Korea has been continuously strengthening cybersecurity measures in response to cyber attacks from hostile forces, such as North Korea. He also outlined the government's policy direction for cybersecurity, saying it's being updated to meet global standards, and said he hoped the Cyber Summit would help Seoul work with partners to overcome challenges ahead and build a more robust cybersecurity infrastructure. Over in the U.S., Democratic nominee Kamala Harris and Republican nominee Donald Trump showed off their starkly different thoughts and visions for the country during their 90-minute presidential debate, which ended with not even a handshake. Former President Trump criticized the Biden administration, saying Biden's policy failures had made inflation worse and that Harris did not have a plan to improve the economy. Vice President Harris, while mentioning that the Trump administration saw the worst unemployment since the Great Depression, stated that Trump's tax cuts are for the rich and would create a deficit. Harris also pledged to create an opportunity economy, which would emphasize lowering the cost of housing and supporting small businesses. She also attacked Trump's close ties with dictators, including Kim Jong-un, which she called a love letter-sending relationship. Trump replied by citing Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban, saying that both China and North Korea fear him. The United States and its allies plan to sanction both Russia and Iran after reports say Tehran supplied Moscow with ballistic missiles. In response, Ukraine says it could cut ties with Iran if the reports are found to be true. Our Lee Seung-jae reports.
On Tuesday, during his visit to London, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken announced that Iran had transferred short-range ballistic missiles to Russia to be used in the ongoing war in Ukraine, and added that fresh sanctions would be slapped on Tehran.
The United States will be announcing further sanctions on Iran later today, including additional measures on Iran Air. We expect allies and partners will be announcing their own new measures on Iran as well.
Blinken said that Iran has long supplied Russia with deadly drones, despite warnings from Washington. Washington also imposed fresh sanctions on Iranian airline Iran Air for operating or having operated in the transportation sector of the Russian Federation economy, while the UK said it will be terminating all direct air services between the UK and Iran. The latest U.S. sanctions also target 7 Russian organizations for their role in using Iranian weapons systems, as well as vessels for transporting such military supplies. The EU's top envoy Josep Borrell also vowed a strong response and said a set of measures had been proposed to EU member states to sanction Iran. Meanwhile, Ukraine said Tuesday that it could cut ties with Iran if ballistic missiles supplied by Tehran to Moscow are used to attack Ukraine. It further denounced such delivery of weapons as unacceptable. Kyiv stressed that armed support from Iran would have devastating consequences for its bilateral ties if the missile supplies were confirmed. Ukraine had previously downgraded its bilateral ties with Iran in 2022 after Tehran supplied attack drones to Russia. The Russian military has since used the drones for long-range attacks. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
In other news, the Israeli military has released footage of the tunnel where hostages killed by Hamas last month were found. Meanwhile, the Gaza Health Ministry announced that an Israeli airstrike on Tuesday killed 19 people. Our Chuseok has the latest on the situation in the Middle East.
On Tuesday local time, the Israel Defense Forces released a video showing the inside of a tunnel in Gaza, where 6 hostages killed by the Palestinian militant group Hamas were found. IDF spokesperson Daniel Hagari himself entered the tunnel's entrance next to walls painted with Disney characters like Mickey Mouse and Snow White. He climbed down a ladder to a tunnel 120 meters long. The tunnel is not tall enough for a person to stand straight without bending and is so narrow that only one person can pass through at a time. The IDF reported that it found the bodies of 6 people in the tunnel, including Hush Goldball-Polin, Alex Lemanov and Kamil Gov't on August 31st, and that they had been executed on the 29th.
Where you cannot stand. And they survived. But they were murdered by terrorists, and we will keep on doing everything we can. Everything to bring back home all the hostages.
Meanwhile, the Hamas-run Gaza Health Ministry said that 19 people died in an Israeli airstrike on Tuesday on the Al-Mawash refugee camp on humanitarian zone. The Israeli military said the attacks were aimed at targeting a number of senior Hamas terrorists. They disputed the Hamas-run Civil Defense Authority's report of an initial death toll of 40 bodies. The Gaza Health Ministry said that 19 bodies were taken to the hospital and 22 were vaporized in the explosion. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres strongly condemned Israel's bombing and urged for an immediate ceasefire and the unconditional release of the hostages. Chuseok, Arirang News.
As a result of two landmark legal cases, the world's two largest tech companies, Apple and Google, have both lost their years-long challenge against the European Union's top court, resulting in payouts worth billions of dollars. Our Yoon reports.
On Tuesday, the European Union's highest court concluded its years-long campaign to regulate the technology industry by ruling against Apple and Google in two separate cases that resulted in huge penalties. Both companies have now exhausted all avenues for appeal in these cases.
Today marks a step forward, and it's encouraging. It's encouraging for us to do more. The Commission will continue its work on harmful tax competition and aggressive tax planning, both in terms of legislative proposals, but also enforcement.
Google lost its last bid with the Court of Justice of the European Union in an appeal against its $2.7 billion penalty for violating antitrust rules 7 years ago in 2017, as the Commission ruled that Google used its price comparison shopping service to gain an unfair advantage over smaller European rivals. Google claimed that they made changes back in 2017 to comply with the European Commission's rules, but some competitors complained that the changes were not enough. In Europe, Google is appealing two other antitrust cases. One from 2018, when the company was fined for breaking antitrust laws to bolster its Android operating system, and another from 2019, where the company was fined for unfair business practices in the digital advertising market. Also on Tuesday, Apple lost its challenge against an order to repay roughly $14.34 billion in back taxes to Ireland. Back in 2016, the European Commission ordered Apple to pay back taxes to Ireland, as regulators determined that Apple had struck illegal dealings with the Irish government that allowed the company to pay virtually nothing in taxes, as low as 0.005%. Apple had tried to appeal their case, saying that Ireland used such low taxes to lure big tech companies to the country. Having won an earlier decision to strike down the order, the 13 billion euros had been placed in an escrow account, which will now be released to Ireland. The court decisions are a victory for European Commissioner Margrethe Vestager, who is expected to step down next month after 10 years as the Commission's top official overseeing competition. Yoon, Arirang News.
LG Electronics' transparent OLED TV has been selected as one of the best products in the video home appliance category in the U.S. According to industry sources on Wednesday, the LG Signature OLED T won the top award in the Best Designer Display category at the CEDIA Expo 2024, a video home appliance exhibition held in Denver, Colorado. The exhibition's official partner, CE Pro, selects the most innovative products at the expo each year. The LG Signature OLED T is a 77-inch transparent OLED TV that supports 4K resolution and was first unveiled at CES 2024 in January. The product received high praise for its clear picture quality, as well as its ability to provide a customized viewing experience. The South Korean national football team got back to winning ways on Tuesday, beating Oman by 3-1. The team's second match of the 2026 North and Central American FIFA World Cup Asian qualifiers took place in Muscat, the city in the capital of Oman. Son Heung-min and Ju Min-gyu each scored goals following Hwang Hee-chan's opening goal for the South Korean team. Son played a big role, also getting 2 assists as he led the team to victory. It was the first win since head coach Hong Myung-bo took charge of the national team for a second time. South Korea tied its first Group B match last week against Palestine. It will also face Iraq, Jordan, and Kuwait in Group B.
Let's take a look at the latest news in the world now. An American billionaire aiming to attempt the first-ever private spacewalk has launched off into space on board a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket. 4 private astronauts consisting of billionaire tech entrepreneur Jared Isaacman, a retired military fighter pilot, and 2 SpaceX employees blasted off from NASA's Kennedy Space Center early on Tuesday local time in the spacecraft called Resilience. On their 5-day mission called Polaris Dawn, they will venture out to an orbit altitude of 1,400 kilometers exceeding the distance reached by NASA's Apollo program in the 1970s. It is the first of 3 trips Isaacman bought from SpaceX founder Elon Musk and aims to test new spacesuit designs. The riskiest part of the mission, the spacewalk, is scheduled to last 2 hours. The crew will attempt the spacewalk on Thursday and also conduct up to 40 experiments, including satellite laser communication. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese on Tuesday announced plans to introduce a minimum age requirement for social media use, citing risks posed to the physical and mental health of children. Albanese said the government will run age verification trial before the rules become law later this year. He added that he wished to see kids off their devices and spending more time on activities such as sports. The law, if enacted, would make Australia one of the first countries in the world to impose age restrictions on social media. An exact age range for the ban was not mentioned, but it's speculated to be set between the ages of 14 and 16. Similar efforts, including by the EU, failed over concerns about limiting the rights of minors. According to government data, Australia has one of the world's largest online populations, with some 80% of people on social media. China's Huawei Technologies unveiled its new tri-foldable phone on Tuesday, just hours after US rival Apple debuted its new iPhone. The Mate XT smartphone, which features dual hinges and 3 foldable screens, was introduced at a starting price tag of $2,800, more than double the cost of Apple's high-end version iPhone 16 Pro Max. Huawei says that it has already received over 4 million pre-orders for the new device. The new Huawei phone is due to go on sale on September 20th, the same date as the new iPhone 16s. Australian Olympian breaker Rachel Gunn, better known as B-Girl Ray Gunn, who went viral after her performance at the Paris Olympic Games, has been ranked #1 breaker in the world by the sport's governing body. The latest women's rankings, released by the World Dance Sport Federation, gave 37-year-old B-Girl Ray Gunn the top spot, even though her performances failed to score any points across Olympic battles, which she lost 18-0 in all 3 rounds against breakers from US, France and Lithuania. The governing body of breaking and other dance sports, WDSF, explained that Ray Gunn's gold medal at the 2023 WDSF Oceania Championships secured her 1,000 ranking points to put her ahead of the breakers. Now, Reagan recently apologized to the breaking community for her Olympic performance, which became tremendously viral for the lack of professionalism. Kim Seo, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. A heat wave warning in September does not sound so normal. Seoul is under a heat wave warning for the first time in September. And if you remember, we also had the earliest heat wave warning back in June. So basically, we have been sweltering since June and it's still ongoing. However, southern provinces should get some heat relief with passing rain under cloudy skies today. And it could rain down heavily in southern regions when it starts to rain. Meanwhile, east of Gangwon-do and Jeju could see showers from the afternoon, so please keep an umbrella handy all day today. The capital is forecast to see passing rain around midnight. And this afternoon, Seoul and Daejeon will be topping out at 35 degrees, Gwangju at 30 degrees. Then it's going to rain down all day tomorrow, which will bring much needed heat relief, which could linger into Friday. But it's going to be a summer-like Chuseok holiday this year, with highs in the 30s in many parts of Korea. Now that's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
Now that ends our Wednesday afternoon newscast. Do stay with us for our panel session coming up next.